When I say don't beg, I'm not just talking about money, opportunities, or relationships. I'm talking about something much deeper, something that reaches into the very core of your identity. Because every time you beg for what should be rightfully yours, every time you lower your voice and shrink your presence just to be accepted or noticed, you are quietly telling the world that you've forgotten your worth. And when you forget your worth, you give permission for life to treat you like a beggar when you were created to walk as a believer. You see, a person who truly knows their worth doesn't operate from a place of desperation. They don't chase after validation. They walk with assurance. That's not arrogance. It's awareness. It's the awareness that you were created with value before you ever achieved a single thing. Your worth is not something to be earned. It was established by your Creator. The moment you came into existence, you carried purpose, potential, and divine identity. When you beg for approval, you act as though that identity is negotiable. But it's not. It's fixed, eternal, and unshakable. People beg when they believe something essential is missing in them. That belief creates fear. Fear of being overlooked, unloved, or insignificant. But fear blinds you to truth. You cannot see your own strength while you're kneeling in insecurity. And the tragedy is that the more you beg, the more you convince yourself you need to. The mind starts to adapt to the posture of begging. You start believing that you must always ask, always wait, always depend on someone else's permission to rise. But faith, true faith, reverses that psychology. Faith says, I already have what I need. I only need to walk it out. That's the mindset of someone who understands divine worth. Think about it. When a king's child walks into the palace, they don't beg for food at the table. They sit because they know they belong there. The table is already set for them. The problem is, too many of us have allowed the world to convince us we're outsiders to our own purpose. We look at others, those who seem more talented, more favored, more powerful, and we begin to see ourselves as less. But that's not humility. That's distortion. Humility is knowing your value and yet choosing to serve. Begging is denying your value and hoping someone else will validate it. There's a difference. This is where Kenneth E. Hagin's teaching comes alive, because he constantly reminded believers that faith isn't passive waiting. It's active knowing. When you know who you are in Christ, you stop striving for recognition and start living from revelation. You understand that the authority of your words and the posture of your heart carry creative power. You no longer say, please, notice me, but instead, I am here to fulfill what God placed in me. That shift changes everything, from how you speak to how you walk, to what you allow. Psychologically, when you move from begging to believing, your mind begins to rewire itself around confidence and purpose. Your focus changes from deficiency to sufficiency. You start to act as if the resources you need are on their way, and that expectation becomes a magnet for manifestation. It's not magic. It's alignment. You're aligning your thoughts and emotions with the truth that you are already enough, already equipped, already called. And once your inner state aligns, your outer reality begins to reflect it. Philosophically, it's about reclaiming agency. Begging hands over your agency to someone else. Believing reclaims it. Begging says, you decide my worth. Believing says, my worth was decided before you even met me. And that's just the truth you must live by if you ever hope to rise above the limitations life tries to impose. You are not meant to live on borrowed affirmation. You are meant to create from conviction. So the next time you find yourself begging for attention, for opportunity, for love, pause and ask yourself, why am I begging for what's already within me? You already carry the seed of greatness. You don't need permission to grow. You just need to believe deeply enough to act like it's true. Because when you finally realize who you are, you stop begging and start becoming. And that's where transformation begins. Not when someone else finally says yes to you, but when you stop saying no to yourself. When you live by faith, you stop seeing life as a desperate struggle for scraps of favor. Begging comes from fear. Faith comes from trust. It's that simple, yet that profound. Fear says, if I don't ask, I'll be forgotten. Faith says, even if I'm overlooked by people, I'm never unseen by God. When you understand that, something deep within you begins to settle. You stop pleading for what you already believe is coming. You begin to rest, not in laziness, but in spiritual assurance. The person who begs is operating from the psychology of lack. They see life as a pie with only so many slices, and they're afraid someone else will take what was meant for them. But faith refuses to see scarcity. It sees abundance. It sees that the source is infinite. Faith shifts your focus from, I need to get to, I already have. That's not denial, it's recognition. You start acknowledging that everything you require to fulfill your purpose has already been placed within you. It may not all be visible yet, but it's real and it's developing. Kenneth E. Hagin often emphasized this: faith is not hoping that something might happen. Faith is knowing it already exists in the spiritual realm. You don't beg for something that's already yours. You claim it through belief. That belief is not arrogance. It's spiritual alignment. When you beg, you declare lack. When you believe, you declare abundance. Faith aligns your language, your posture, and your energy with what you expect. That's why Scripture says, walk by faith, not by sight. Because sight will often lie to you. Sight will tell you that nothing is changing, that doors are closed, that people aren't responding. But faith says, the door is already open. I just haven't reached it yet. Now, let's get honest. Faith doesn't mean pretending everything is easy. It's not about blind optimism. It's about confidence rooted in truth. When fear rises, faith reminds you that God's timing is never late. The world may push you to hurry, to grasp, to beg, but faith teaches patience. The waiting season isn't punishment, it's preparation. Every delay you face while standing in faith is shaping your character, sharpening your discernment, and teaching you endurance. Fear wants results. Faith values growth. Psychologically, this shift is powerful. When your mind operates in fear, your body responds with stress, tension, anxiety. You start making desperate decisions. You compromise your standards just to feel safe. But when your mind operates in faith, your nervous system calms. You think clearer. You act with purpose instead of panic. Faith grounds you in stability, while fear tosses you around like a leaf in the wind. People who beg often exhaust themselves emotionally because they are living in survival mode. But when you live by faith, you move into creation mode. You start building instead of begging. Philosophically, faith redefines control. Fear tries to control everything. how people respond, how fast things happen, how outcomes unfold. But faith releases control back to the source. It doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop worrying. You take your steps in trust, knowing that what's meant for you cannot pass you by. When you stop begging, you don't lose humility. You gain perspective. You realize that faith is not passive resignation. It's active alignment with divine order. It's the discipline of saying, I may not see it yet, but I know it's being arranged for my good. There's a quiet dignity that comes with faith. People who walk in faith don't need to announce every struggle or explain every move. Their peace speaks for them. They operate from assurance, not apology. They understand that begging for approval or opportunity diminishes their spiritual authority. When you beg, you hand your power to someone else. When you walk by faith, you reclaim it. That's why Hagin always reminded believers to hold fast to your confession. The words you speak shape your world. If your words constantly echo fear, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, no one sees me, then that's the reality you reinforce. But if your words echo faith, I am equipped, I am guided, my time will come, then your actions and environment begin to align with that truth. The greatest act of faith is sometimes to stop asking and start acting. Stop begging for the next step and take the one in front of you. Stop begging for a door to open and prepare yourself as if it already has. Faith without works is dead, yes, but works without faith are exhausting. When you combine the two, you move with confidence and peace. So, if you've been waiting, worrying, wondering when things will change, take this with you. You don't have to beg for what's already been promised. You only have to believe strongly enough to act as if it's true. Because when you walk by faith, you're not chasing blessings. You're walking toward what was already written for you. There comes a time when you must stop waiting for others to notice your potential and start building it yourself. Too many people spend their lives chasing after validation, hoping someone will see their effort, open a door for them, or affirm that they're good enough. But here's the truth. No one can build your life for you. You can't beg people to invest in what you won't commit to developing. The world doesn't respond to begging. It responds to growth. When you start building yourself, when you cultivate your gifts, refine your discipline, and strengthen your faith, you stop depending on recognition and start becoming the kind of person who commands it naturally. Begging for validation is a psychological trap. It feels harmless at first, wanting to be appreciated, wanting to be seen. But slowly it begins to drain your power. You start molding your actions around what others might approve of, instead of what's right for you. You delay your dreams waiting for permission that was never needed in the first place. That's why so many people remain stuck in cycles of frustration. They want the reward of confidence without the work of becoming. But when you truly build yourself, confidence is the inevitable byproduct. It's not something you perform. It's something you embody. Kenneth E. Hagin used to emphasize the principle of acting on the word. Faith, he said, is not just believing, is acting as though what God promised is already true. The same applies to personal development. You can't keep saying you believe in your purpose while living like you don't. You have to act on that belief. You build by doing, by by taking consistent steps, even when no one's watching. There's a dignity in private progress. Those silent mornings when you pray, study, plan, and grow without applause. That's where real strength is formed. Begging seeks attention, building seeks transformation. When you invest in yourself, you stop being desperate for external validation, because you start seeing the internal evidence of growth. You begin to respect your own process. Think about it, a seed doesn't beg for sunlight. It grows toward it. It doesn't plead for rain. It uses what falls upon it. Everything in creation already knows how to grow. You, too, have that divine instinct within you. But if you keep comparing your journey to others, or waiting for someone to tell you that you're ready, you'll silence that instinct. You'll live on pause while life keeps moving forward. Philosophically, building yourself is an act of self-respect. It's the recognition that you are responsible for developing the potential God placed within you. You're not responsible for the outcome. That's God's realm. But you are responsible for preparation. Every person who has ever made a lasting impact understood this truth of preparation is faith in motion. You can't say you believe in the promise and then refuse to build for it. A house without a foundation collapses, no matter how beautiful the dream that designed it. And so you build slowly, intentionally, and with conviction. Psychologically, building shifts your mindset from dependency to empowerment. When you focus on your own growth, you start measuring progress differently. Instead of asking, why isn't this happening for me? You begin to ask, what am I becoming through this? That shift is where power lives. You start seeing rejection as redirection, failure as feedback, and waiting seasons as training grounds. You become emotionally self-sufficient, not because you don't need others, but because you no longer rely on them for your sense of worth. It's important to understand that building yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means taking responsibility for the foundation of your life before inviting others to build on it. You can't expect a stable partnership, career, or purpose to grow on an unstable core. People who build on borrowed strength always end up collapsing under pressure. But those who take time to build within, through prayer, learning, discipline, and patience, become unshakable. They no longer beg for doors to open. They become the kind of people who create new ones. And when you build yourself, opportunities begin to find you. You don't have to chase them. They're drawn to readiness. Life rewards preparation. People who seem lucky are often just prepared when their moment arrived. That's the essence of divine timing. When what you've built inside aligns with what God has prepared outside. You don't need to beg for it. You simply step into it because you've been becoming it all along. So stop waiting to be noticed. Stop begging for someone to see your worth. You don't need to announce your growth. Your results will do that for you. Every skill you build, every prayer you whisper, every obstacle you overcome is a brick in the structure of your destiny. Build with faith, and soon what you once begged for will come looking for you. There's a power in the way you speak that most people never truly understand. Your words don't just describe your world, they design it. Every time you open your mouth, you are either affirming faith or reinforcing fear. Begging is the language of desperation. Speaking with authority is the language of belief. When you beg, You declare that the thing you desire is distant and uncertain. But when you speak with authority, you bring that reality closer, because your words are infused with conviction. This is not about arrogance or pride. It's about alignment. It's about realizing that your voice carries creative power when it's anchored in faith. Kenneth E. Hagin often said that your confession sets the boundaries of your life. In other words, what you consistently speak becomes what you consistently experience. If your speech is filled with phrases like, "I hope things get better," "maybe one day," or "I don't know if I can," then you're programming your life for hesitation and defeat. But when your language shifts to "I will," "it is possible," "I am equipped," something inside of you begins to change. Your words start to build pathways in your mind, and your mind begins to shape your behavior accordingly. The more you speak with authority, the more your subconscious accepts that authority as truth. Begging weakens the spirit because it is rooted in the belief that power lies outside of you. It's the mentality of, "Someone else holds my breakthrough." But the truth is, no one holds your destiny in their hands but God, and He has already placed within you the capacity to manifest His plan. When you beg, you're acting as if the power to create, to decide, to become belongs to others. When you speak with authority, you reclaim that power. You start saying, "I may not see the full picture yet, but I know who I am, and I know what's mine." That's not pride, that's faith. Psychologically, your words shape your perception. The human brain responds to language not just intellectually, but emotionally and chemically. Every word carries energy. When you speak in defeat, your body mirrors it. You feel weaker, smaller, hesitant. When you speak in strength, your physiology changes, your posture lifts, your tone deepens, your mind sharpens. That's why Scripture says, "Let the weak say, I am strong." It's not denial of weakness. It's declaration of truth that transcends it. The act of speaking faith is the first step in living it. Philosophically, speech is one of the highest expressions of will. Animals act on instinct, but humans speak intention into being. To speak with authority is to assert your participation in creation. It is to say, "I'm not waiting for life to decide who I become. I'm declaring it." Every great transformation begins with a word. God Himself spoke creation into existence. That same principle lives within you. The words you choose reflect the level of consciousness you operate from. Begging keeps you tied to the lower mind, the mind that fears lack and rejection. Speaking with faith elevates you to the higher mind, the mind that trusts divine order and sees abundance. Now, understand this. Speaking with authority doesn't mean shouting louder. It means speaking clearer, truer, and with conviction. Some of the most powerful declarations are whispered in private, when no one is watching, but heaven is listening. When you say, "I am healed," "I am capable," "I am guided," you're not making wishes. You're issuing instructions to your reality. You are commanding your atmosphere to align with truth. That's how faith operates. It speaks before it sees. If you've been begging for change, it's time to shift your language. Stop saying, "I need," and start saying, "I receive." Stop saying, "I'm waiting for a miracle," and start saying, "I am walking in my miracle." That's not denial. It's alignment, because faith doesn't describe things as they are. It declares them as they are meant to be. And when your words begin to reflect that inner certainty, your actions follow. You start moving differently. You make decisions from power, not panic. You carry yourself like someone who already knows they are backed by divine authority. Your words reveal what you truly believe about yourself. When you speak small, it's because you've been convinced you are small. But when you speak with faith, you affirm your identity as someone made in the image of a creator. And a creator doesn't beg for what he has the power to command. That doesn't mean commanding people. It means commanding your focus, your discipline, your response to life. Speaking with authority means taking responsibility for the energy you project and the reality you participate in shaping. So the next time you catch yourself begging, whether for love, opportunity, peace, or change, pause and listen to your words. Ask yourself, hell, am I speaking as a beggar or as a believer? Because one mindset keeps you bound to lack, and the other opens the door to abundance. Your words can either keep you kneeling in fear or help you rise in faith. Choose them wisely. Speak as one who knows who they are, and watch how the world begins to respond differently to you.